right. Hello, everybody. It's 12:02. I'll get started with all this. Thanks for attending the La Plata Democrats Club Zoom meeting. The goal of the club is to bring together all Democrats, from the most conservative to the most progressive, to celebrate our shared values, appreciate who we are, and to work together to put more Dems in office. And I'd like to announce our club lunch sponsor, which is Albrechta and Albrechta Law Firm here in Durango. So if you need legal help, I'll put their website in the chat. Today we'll hear from Marsha Porter Norton, and I'll intro her in a bit. She's our La Plata County Commissioner serving her second term. Everybody is asked to stay muted except for the speaker and myself. If you want to submit a question different from the ones we're asking during the luncheon, you can use the chat feature on the Zoom. Please don't just unmute yourself and speak. Make sure you send your questions to everyone in the chat. When it says, who do you want to send it to, make sure you pick everyone in the chat. If you're having trouble with internet connectivity, you can disable your video because audio only works better on slower connections. This Zoom meeting is being recorded and it'll be available within a day or so for viewing on our YouTube channel. So you just put La Plata Democrats in the YouTube search bar and you'll find it. I'll put the actual link in the chat too. If you want a larger video of the person speaking, go up on the upper right corner of your box and choose speaker mode, and it'll make them a bigger box. I'd like to encourage everyone to donate to the Plata County Dems in these important times so we can accumulate funds ahead of the need. Monthly donations make it easier for you to give to the party with relatively little pain. Make sure you check our website to see what our next Zoom meeting will be. If anyone has any announcements to make, enter something in the chat window and we'll recognize it at the end of the session. So now I'm going to introduce Marsha Porter Norton. She's our La Plata County Commissioner serving her second term. I believe you're the chair, right, Marsha? Anyway, I think she's the chair at this point. She's here in that role, but also as a member of Citizens for La Plata County, which is an issues committee formed to pass a 1-cent sales tax to ensure essential core services that are to be available for county residents to promote safety, health, and quality of life for everyone. So I'm looking forward to this presentation. Thank you, Marsha. Take it away.
Thank you. And Karen and Kirby, you two are the shower-uppers of all time. And I think you get gold stars for constantly being there for so many people and so many causes. Thank you. And I also want to, first of all, thank the La Plata Democrats for hosting this. If you're listening into this and you're not a Democrat, please hang with us because this is important information for our shared future. And thanks for the Democrats for always making their luncheons open to everybody. So I will just also let everybody know I'm not the only elected official on here. Matt Salka is on here. He is, of course, a county commissioner from District 3. We have Sean Smith, who I think might be eating his salad now. Thank you, Sean. This is a luncheon. So thanks, Sean, for being here. Sheriff Smith, as we all know. And then we have Monty Grushkin, who is our elected treasurer. So I want to set this up for everybody. We are here, but we're here on our own time. A lot of times when you're an elected official, you don't have your own time, but this is not an official La Plata County presentation because last week the commissioners voted to send a question to ballot that will get into great detail. So Monty and Sean and Matt and I are here on our own time, so to speak, and Citizens for La Plata County is a very new issues committee. We're 50 people strong. We're going to be raising money and really working for this. And so now I will share my screen. And I also want to set this up. This PowerPoint is detailed by design. It's long. I'll try to get through it in about 20 minutes. We give it when we have this amount of time. So thank you for the Democrats. The county revenue situation is not easily explained in like a fact sheet or a meme or one talking point. And I know I'm talking to the crowd here. A lot of you are very sophisticated folks. But that's why we need a bit of time to explain the situation and then totally want to open it up to questions. And then also, I will certainly ask my fellow elected officials to weigh in. So now I'm going to go on to sharing the screen. We always hope that Marsha does well with technology. I think that's going to work. Does that work?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. And then slideshow. Eh, let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to get, there we go. I know I will get it here. I'm trying to do slide. Oh, there we go. And then we'll do from the beginning. All right. And we might want to do can you do the gallery at the top, Karen? Is that possible, or move the gallery over just a tiny bit? Anyway, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know how.
oh, that's okay. All right, we are at a crossroads with La Plata County's revenue, and our campaign theme and our tagline is Protect Today, Invest in Tomorrow. So what does La Plata County do? We provide essential services to 56,823 residents. And so you can't see the right side of your screen, but if you know what I might do, Karen, just so we can, because I
Oh,
have a bunch of numbers.
Marsha, we do see the whole screen. You were correct. You may need to change your gallery yourself, which would be view, which would be the top right-hand corner of your screen for Zoom.
Okay, then we're good. Thank you. Thanks to our technological commissioner, Matt Solka. All right, so the what we do is we provide essential services to residents of La Plata County. As everybody knows, we have a new commissioner, Commissioner Felbrecht. She's amazing. And she said something so telling to me and us at a meeting is that county government does so many things you almost don't know it's there. It's like when you take things for granted in our life, right? That is what county government does. And so we fund things, and this is a little pie chart of where your money goes, and it is your money. We're very aware of that. This is taxpayer precious dollars, federal, state, or of course local taxes. It goes to general government, public safety, public works, health and safety, and then general culture, and I don't kind of like that brown title because it makes it look like we're funding like a bunch of like a rec center. That is really for our fairgrounds and then public services grants that help our community in so many ways. So that's who we are, what we do. I think most of you on this call are again pretty sophisticated folks. When Commissioner Salk and I were elected, we wanted a new strategic plan. It's been a work in process. If you go to the commissioners part of our website, you can see all the metrics for this. Again, you're going to get this PowerPoint, but we want to create a county that is healthy, safe, and economically viable for present and future generations that honors everyone. We will attain the highest level of trust possible and satisfaction and confidence of county residents, customers, employees. And this is pretty key. We want to be the key employer in the region. And that is because all our 486 staff members provide services to you, the public. So how do we do that? And if you go to our website, you can look at objectives and goal and measurable goals, but safety and well-being, sustainable growth, economic vitality, excellent stewardship, and thriving and inclusive communities. And so everything we do fits under that. All right, we are animals of the state. A lot of times we can't do, many times we cannot do the same things that like the city of Durango or towns of Bayfield and Ignacio do, because we are in actual political subdivisions of the state and we have 18 departments. We have to manage our resources responsibly. Not only do the taxpayers desire that, but we have to have a balanced budget. We have to do an audit. All of that is available to the public. You can see where La Plata County is, and I'm going to go in now to I'm going to bounce through these slides pretty quickly. There are many things as an animal of the state that counties have to do, and I'm not going to read all these. You can get this PowerPoint. We have to fund a district attorney and the courts. We have to provide public health or ensure it's provided, provide for animal control, construct and maintain roads, public buildings. We have to do social services. The lists go on and on and on. This is like slide 2. We have to have a planning commission and a land use system. We have to establish and maintain a landfill. Some of this stuff isn't glitzy. It's not sexy. It's the kind of stuff that is there every day to make our lives, if not better, then more safe. And for example, consequence for management for emergencies. I had no idea till I was a commissioner all the things we do in a wildfire that are necessary while we're not out there technically fighting the fire. So there's all these things we have to do. Sean is online. Here's all the things he has to do. We have 5 other elected officials besides him and the commissioners, but he has to all the things you can imagine a sheriff does: provide security for the courts, coordinate or ensure search and rescue, close or restrict highways. All right, all the things the sheriff must do. And then at the end of the slideshow, and it's only put there because we have so many lists here, we have a clerk and recorder, an assessor, a treasurer and public trustee. That's Monty Grushkin, who is on. Thank you, Monty. A surveyor and coroner. So we're all required to do these things. And then this next slide is important. Here's what we're not required to do, but the public wants us to do. Broadband, Matt's main focus. Ambulance licensing, like we could put that on the state. Alcohol detox. Hundreds of people go through alcohol detox every year that Access Health Systems runs, and we contribute big money. We don't have to do wildfire mitigation. Sheriff's office patrols. Sean can talk about that later. So we have all this stuff that we have to fund that or that we don't have to fund that is on the list that makes our life better. Homeless camp cleanup. Sean can talk about that. Libraries. We don't operate libraries, but we help fund the Durango Public Library. So who pays for all this? You do. We have an annual budget, and then we certify mill levies for 95 taxing districts. We'll talk about that. 18 departments, 400 employees, 486 to be exact. And this is important, the bucket concept. So, and by the way, this PowerPoint is very, very basic. I'm sort of using some stock images here. It's important to know we have a general fund, a road and bridge fund, human services, public health, and capital improvement. All of those things in orange go into each of these buckets in terms of revenue. It's over $100 million budget, and we can't switch them around. And so we may have a healthy general fund one year. We can't switch that over to capital or road and bridge, especially. So that's important with, again, being an animal of the state. So the revenue is from property and sales tax, highway user tax funds, very long list of where we get our revenue from. We're going to focus on property and sales in this presentation. So what do we pay for to give you services? It's not cheap to run a government, frankly, and it shouldn't be. We want to pay people well. We want to pay people a livable wage. We want to be competitive with salaries. And the things we pay for, Sean, if you could answer this question at the end, we have certain types of equipment for road and bridge or for our sheriff's deputies. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for. And of course, we know with pandemic pricing, which unfortunately is now just called regular pricing, everything is really expensive and inflation is hitting us hard, just like everybody else. But you can see revenue in equals expenses paid. And then by the way, if you ever want to do a deep dive in our budget, I think it's a great document. People that aren't adept at budgets should be able to read it and figure out what we're doing. So we're at a critical crossroads. We have limited tax dollars in relation to your needs and expectations. We have a growing population, increased costs. Voters have not raised taxes since the 80s and have never voted. They haven't raised sales taxes since the 80s. They've never voted to increase property taxes. The state legislature took a number of actions that have cost us 14 million to date. That's over the last 2 years and the coming year. That is hurting us badly. We have a structural deficit. We've cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. We'll talk about that quickly. We're looking at a 10% reduction in force. If we don't get this sales tax, we are going to be looking at really cutting into, as Commissioner Salka said this weekend in the paper, we're going to, or last week when we took this to ballot, we're going to be cutting into the muscle. And I think we already are. We're depleting our fund balance. Part of that was during the oil and gas years, we had a high fund balance. We were able to invest in some key things, but those days are coming to an end. So we're at a critical crossroads. We're going to talk now about how property tax works in Colorado and in our county. So I'm not going to read this to you. A lot of you may be adept at this. First of all, what is a mill levy and why does it matter? You first of all start, I'm pointing here, I hope you can see this. Let's say your house is worth 500,000. You take it times an assessment rate, and this is huge. This assessment rate at 0.0625 is what the legislature cut so badly, costing us millions. And they did it for a good reason. It was because property tax values were rising. You take your home valuation that comes in from our assessor times the assessment rate, and then you get the amount of your home that can be taxed. Now, to make it further complicated, some people qualify for exemptions, and so those come off that top number. So the county doesn't tax you on the full value of your home. It taxes you on $31,250. Then you take it by the mill, 8.5 mills. And right there in the box, a mill is $1 assessed for every $1,000 in value. So the government tax bill to the county on a $500,000 home is $285. That's important because people, we're going to talk about a myth in a second of, well, my home value is going up. Carrie Woodson, the assessor, said my home value is going up. You guys must be rolling in cash. We disperse, and Monty knows this well, this is her job. We disperse money to 95 different property taxing districts. So the county does not get everything that you write in a check. All right. The mill levy is the fifth lowest in the state of Colorado and has been unchanged. It's never been changed. It was set in the 80s. It was locked into stone when the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights was passed. I'm not going to get into Tabor. That's a whole nother 20-minute discussion. I think most of you are familiar with Tabor. It limits income and revenue through formulas. That red number is that red line is La Plata County. We're the fifth lowest mill levy in the state. And it is because we lived off oil and gas for generations. I've been here since the 90s, and I remember the former finance director for La Plata County, Wayne Bedore, saying, you guys, we're going to live off this, and then there's going to be a day when oil and gas goes away or wanes. Well, that's what the time that Commissioner Philbrook, Salka, and I are serving in, as well as Treasurer Grushkin and Sean Smith. Sheriff Smith. So we're not doing great in terms of being able to collect a lot of taxes based on the property taxes based on the mill levy. Again, the legislature has pulled various levers. In 2020, this is all very complicated, folks. I don't expect you all to get this the first time around. Then the voters got rid of Gallagher, which limited property tax values in valuation in Colorado. Nothing was done to replace it. We know about Tabor. Oil and gas taxes are going down. So we have less property tax. This is the bottom line in orange. We have all these mandated services, more happening every year that the county government must do, and we have less property tax to pay for it. All right, now we're going to go to the next slide. These are some really technical slides. By the way, this isn't an Elizabeth, Matt, and Marsha thing that came up with all this. We have a very high-level long-term finance committee. Last year, they presented us options, and we're proceeding with the sales tax based on many factors. But this is a slide they did. If you look at this chart, you see the taxable value top line in property for the last 15 years has gone up by 37%. Anybody that owns a home on this call knows that. But the amount that we're actually getting from that valuation increase has gone down 12% because of the residential assessment and the loss of oil and gas production. So you can see that's a pretty big giant gap there, and it's not sustainable. Then we have experienced over 15 years a 46% loss in property tax revenue for the same reason. And again, that means less money to pay for services, senior services, the coroner, sheriff services, patrols, mental health co-responder, the list goes on and on. What I want to do now is talk about why it's a myth that you're paying more property tax. And I know people out there on fixed incomes are super sensitive to this. We are super sensitive to you. So we know you're paying more property tax, but La Plata County doesn't get the windfall from that. And here's why. Thank you, Sean, for this wonderful illustration. This is Sean and Tracy Smith's tax bill. This is shared with permission. It is a $550 home in the rural county. They pay $2157.40 in their total tax bill. The county gets $327.93 of that, $328. That is because, and you look here, there's 10 taxing districts that Sean and Tracy pay into. La Plata County for its roads gets $27 a year. That's the price of a lunch. For Sean and his wife and other people that live in a home like this in the county, they get road services for $27.39. They get human services, which is protection of our most vulnerable, for $26 a year. And the general fund that funds the sheriff's department, general government, on and on, gets $274. If you look here, the Florida Mosquito District gets 802, and the Durango Fire Protection District gets 316, and the list goes on. So,
No, school district.
uh,
Durango School District got 800.
yep. Oh, I'm sorry. I was off a line there. Yep, you're right, Karen. Thank you. There we go. So we are by no means saying don't fund schools, don't fund fire districts, don't fund. Yeah, you're right. It's Durango School Districts. Thank you, Karen. Gets the 802. I was off a line here. We are by no means saying don't fund other things. We're saying by funding essential community services, all our lives are better. But don't think when you pay your taxes, the county is rolling in money, because we're not. In fact, it's going the opposite direction. Now we move on to sales taxes. They have not been raised for 43 years. I have her permission to say this. That's more years than Commissioner Philbrick has been on the planet. And so we're due for some revenue to help people, to help our Count 18 departments pay for things. We are at 2% for sales tax. Archuleta County next door, 4. Montezuma, 2.9. San Juan, 6.5. Alamosa, 3. And then Mesa County actually has 4.37. These are counties that are politically diverse. And we are collecting more in sales taxes per year, which is a good trend line for our 1 cent. Oil and gas. We know I'm not going to go into all the technicalities of oil and gas. This is not a technical presentation on that matter. But over the last 14 years, the part of the county budget derived from oil and gas has gone down, from 50% of the property tax revenue to 20. And we cannot any longer rely on this industry to pay our bills. Why? You look at production. Now, this is an interesting chart. The blue line is La Plata County oil and gas production. We are taxed on the production. We're not taxed on their profit. We receive taxes on their production. San Juan County, New Mexico is arguably much less regulated than us. And look at that. The trend line is the same. And so this concept that we ran the oil and gas industry out of this county, it just simply isn't true. The Fruitland Formation is a particular layer that is being drilled in right now, to use bad grammar. And we've known for years it's going to wane. If you talk to Assessor Woodson, she said the gas field was supposed to last 20 years and it's lasted 25. Now, there is a new play in a different layer called Mancos Shale. A lot of that map is not in La Plata County, or it's on tribal land, which is not taxed. So the bottom line here is we can't rely on oil and gas like people, including me, I've lived here 31 years, have been able to do. We have to find more revenue to provide services. This is the gas price. As you can see, it's a BTU is what it's called. I'm not an expert on this, but I do know trend lines. So if you look at what the gas price is, and you can times it by production, they're not bringing in a lot of property tax money for services. Inflation, I don't have to tell all you this. I'm going to skip over this slide. It's about 2.85% a year. This is from our Road and Bridge Department. To do a mile of mill and overlay in 1992, it was 180,000, and now it's 650. So again, like your household, like you buying cars, trying to pay things, we are under those same constraints. That one I don't need. So we have cut. So what is the Board of County Commissioners doing? We're not sitting in our thumbs. We've known about this for 3 or 4 years. But importantly, we didn't know the legislature was going to quite take the knife to our residential assessment like they did. I'm not throwing them under the bus. They had their own reason for doing it, and it was the big statewide compromise that hurt us. We have been cutting operations and expenses for 3 years and down to the quick. We've had no personnel increases, reduced vehicles, removed vacancy savings. We may have to take our public grants next year down from over 1.1 million to about 700,000. And that's to organizations who are incredibly critical in our community. We have stopped one-time expenditures. We've asked all staff to look at, all the department heads to look at giving another 15% for next year. We're on a hiring freeze. We have deferred maintenance on buildings, about 18 million a year. And then this is really sad and breaks my heart. We may have to, on top of all this, if this doesn't pass, reduce our workforce by 10%. And those are complicated formulas. We're working with them right now in real time with a reduction in force committee and a budget committee, but it's quite real. This is not we're not talking hyperbole here. And this is immediately about 44 to 48 employees, in addition to all the other like vacancy savings. So and this is, it doesn't matter how really I feel about it or Matt feels about it. What really matters is all of this equates across our 18 departments to services that really, really are impactful to our community. So it's not sustainable. We know, I'm going to kind of skip over this. I think I've made my point. Just as one example, our road and bridge budget is 10 million in the hole a year. Previous commissioners went to ballot for a property tax. That didn't work, and we are at where we're at. But it's not a sustainable situation in terms of providing core services. So what we are proposing is a 1 cent sales tax. That's for every dollar you pay a penny. It would raise 18 million a year. Now, people with really detailed minds are going to say, where exactly, Marsha, are you going to spend that 18 million? We cannot commit future boards, but here's what I will say. We've already cut 8.3 in the last 2 years. The minimum to cut next year is 6. So we want to restore those services and programs. We want to make sure that our capital needs are met. We want to make sure we're not having to do that additional reduction in force. And we want to fund essentially what 18 million does. It's not gravy. It's not frosting. It's not extravagance. We're not going to go out and, for example, do what a lot of people want us to do, like build trails and start a parks and rec department, all wonderful ideas, or fund housing to the level we need to. It's to keep our basic county mandated services in place. So I can't sit here today and say we're going to commit 1 million here and 2 million here. That's what the public process is for in our budget. It's 23 a month, the average cost. And then again, sales taxes have not been raised in 33 years. Again, where would it go? Road and bridge maintenance. We know there's a $10 million hole there. Deferred maintenance, we have 18 buildings that we keep, including the fairgrounds. So there's 18 millions of deferred maintenance there. Sean can talk about public safety. We really want to make sure that we're preparing for and responding to wildfire, floods, and disasters. And then just essential services. I was reading my board packet a couple months ago. Every quarter, we respond to about 200 allegations of elder abuse. That is just one thing we do. We have 3,200 veterans in the county. They can use our veteran services. We have over about 15 kids in therapeutic foster care. These are the kids that we're all most worried about. If they don't, and this foster care program is a model in the state to give them what they need in their foster care placement. We deliver meals to seniors out on the dry side. I hear regularly, if that wasn't done, that senior would not be getting a meal. The thing Sean does around needing to deal with the really quite horrible fentanyl crisis we have in our community. If you hear any passion in my voice, it's because I care deeply and we care deeply about keeping these services going. And 18 million relates to our slogan, which is we're protecting today and investing in tomorrow with this money. I can guarantee you it will be well spent and it's not frosting. What's going to happen if we don't have this? Again, I can't give you a detailed list now, but we know services and county employees will go away. One thing I want to say about those county employees, every single one of them has a family and they come to work every day and provide services, whether it's a jail, dispatch, 911 dispatch, all of the things that we do across these 18 departments. Monty has the hardest job around, keeping track of the county's finances, who gets paid what, where are we going to invest it? Everybody has this role to play, and for especially the non-mandated services, we're going to have to cut most of those as well as even possibly then levels of service. And that could look like snow plowing. That could look like senior services. I'm not going to sit here and commit to everything because we're in a budget process and a ballot process now. I do firmly believe vulnerable populations are going to be harmed. We're going to have fewer, that should say, road project, and it's going to hurt the county's ability to have employee retention. I think that's already happening, sadly. So the next step, for just 1 cent, we can protect today, invest in tomorrow. I don't want to get too silly here. This is a small call, but we know others will be listening. We voted on the 26th to put it on the ballot. We have an issue committee. Again, 50 people are involved. The election is 11-4. We have a speakers bureau that's getting trained up on speaking. I'm doing 4 today. Matt's doing the Ignacio Chamber. Monty's been reaching out to her Rotary Club. Sean has been doing a fabulous job getting out and mobilizing people within the county who want to do this on their own time. We can't do it on our own time. So here's the ballot language. You can read that. And I will just stop sharing if that's okay. And we can go on from there. Does anybody want me to go backwards to a slide before I stop sharing?
I saw something I really liked just now. You said you can't provide 21st century services on how to go 20th century revenue.
Yes, that's right. So the sales taxes were raised 43 years ago, and the property taxes were actually put in that mill of 8.5 was put in place in the 80s, but it's never been raised by voters. But it was when Tabor passed in 92, it locked everybody's mills in, and from then on, you needed a vote. And so that's what happened with that. So yeah, Karen, you're right. What is it? The year 2025, and we're dealing with property and sales from 33 and 43 years ago.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right, I'll stop sharing. Let's see, I see Carrie's on. Sorry, Carrie, I wasn't looking at my full screen. I mentioned you a few times. Carrie Woodson, as we know, is our fabulous assessor. She catches a lot of flack from people that are concerned about property valuations. We get it. There's a process that people can protest. And I think what I'd like to do now, we can open it up to questions for sure, but Sean or Matt or any other electeds that want to talk about this situation, please add whatever is comfortable for you. I've taken a lot of time here.
Well, hey, Karen, I just wanted to jump on what you just said a second ago about the disparity in 21st century and all that. One of my staff went ahead and put it out and did the calculations, put out their own little Facebook thing on their own time, and said they went back and looked. And in 1982, a dozen eggs was 87 cents. Now it's 4.99. The loaf of bread was 87 cents. Now it's 2.71 average price. Pound of bacon was $1.94. Now it's $7.49 at City Market. And on and on and on, right? And the fact is, all of those costs that have gone up for each of us individually have also gone up for county government. And there can be disagreement with how some things are done in government. There can be anything, but you can't expect a government to function on dollars that were set 4 decades ago when they have today's costs involved, right? Whether that's my sheriff's deputies, and my department's a really good example for that. When I became sheriff in 2015, my budget was a little over $15 million a year, and now it's $22 million a year. I am less people today than I was 11 years ago. I have less employees today, but the cost of every one of those employees has gone up. The Chevy Tahoe that we buy for all of our patrol, that all the citizens see out there, used to be 36,000 in 2015. Now it's 58,000 under state bid. The equipment that went in it used to cost 15,000. Now it costs 30,000. Everything has gone up exponentially over recent years, and we've been trying to eat those costs as much as we can, and we just can't function that way on county tax dollars. And if I am concerned, because if you think about what's going to happen if we're not funded and I have to cut staff, look at this summer. We've had a number of wildfires. We've had a number of challenges, and those require not only the existing people. People are always shocked when I tell them that our average patrol shift out in the county is 5 deputies in 1,700 square miles. When we have a fire kickoff with a bunch of homes that have to be evacuated, it requires all of those deputies and then some to get out there and knock on doors and make sure people are safely getting evacuated and out of harm's way. And those are the types of things that I'm going to have to be eliminating if we don't have the money to fund them. So I think we've got to be smarter, and I'll be brief. I'm not great at brevity always, and wait for questions if there are some and move on to someone else who wants to talk.
Dick White put a good question in the chat. Can you see it, Marsha?
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to take that?
Yes, thank you, Dick, for that excellent question. First of all, we know sales taxes are difficult for people who are struggling. That is not lost on us. And at the same time, we know that a property tax could not get through. We have very, very strong data to say that in this era of, I think Carrie will know this, I think all of our valuations are going up like 20% from cycle to cycle. So if there was a different kind of tax we could do other than sales that would raise 18 million, I would be all over it. And I also want to note, I'm speaking as one commissioner here. If it was solely the oil and gas decline and inflation, we could probably be holding our own a bit better. It's that residential assessment rate that's killing us when the legislature reduced it. So the property tax doesn't poll great, I'll be frank with you. And we just have to be transparent about that. But also, sales taxes are shared by everybody. Everybody uses the services, and tourists pay 33%. So I said it this morning. I was at El Moro. I have about 10 things on my desk that I would rather be doing than asking for a sales tax, frankly. I'd rather be working on more affordable housing. I want to make sure we get a recovery campus in Southwest Colorado. I mean, all this stuff, right? And not to mention the 5 citizens that I need to do a better job of following up with them. But we don't have a choice, and this is something that that really reverberates across the whole county. You may use 3 of the services on that list a year. You may be getting married or going through a divorce, or you may, you drive on county roads probably. And by the way, we have so many partnerships with the city of Durango. City residents benefit as well. We, as you know, former Councilor White, we have an airport that we share. We're in the Regional Housing Alliance. There's all the, Sean does all kinds of mutual aid with the city of Durango. So we have a shared interest with people in both the towns and the city as well. But great question. I think it's a totally fair question.
And just for the record, I'm going to read the question because I should have done that because I don't think the video will have the chat. So Dick asked, could you address the reasons for seeking a sales tax rather than a property tax? It's important to highlight the reasons because the burden of sales taxes fall disproportionately on lower income residents. So that was a good answer. Thank you so much.
And I'll say thanks, Marsha.
I'd like to jump in if I could and answer that question a little bit deeper.
Go ahead.
Okay. I saw Dick was starting to talk, so I didn't want to talk over him. So there's a couple of things that have occurred that I think makes the public not really want to talk about property taxes. And I think the school district 9R bond that went into place last year is a big one of those, because everyone saw their taxes go up quite a bit last year, but the values didn't change. And I heard that a lot this year. People saying, wait a minute, taxes went up a lot. Why? That was a big one. And people are feeling that this year. And I think that the other piece of that is that we really do, if we can share this burden with our visitors, it's a better way of sharing that burden. So I just wanted to say those two things.
Yeah.
And if I may too as well,
Quickly say
Matt
thanks to
Salter.
both of you.
Yeah. And Dick, too, about 2 years ago, I had held a meeting out in Oxford with rural residents about concerns about roads and maintenance, and we were even having those discussions of just the budget shortfall that we can only manage so much, but we're going to do our best, darn it. That was the one thing that I proposed to that question to this group is, hey, sales tax, property tax, what are your thoughts? And majority of them were like, if you put up a property tax question, I will vote no on this. But if you're willing to put up and entertain a sales tax, so all of La Plata will help pay for or assist, as well as tourists, we're all ears and we're more than happy to learn more. And so I've been engaging with those residents too as well, and they seem to be more pleased and more receptive to learn more on what this could do to impact them as well as everyone here in La Plata County.
Mm-hmm.
And one final thing, Dick, something else I've been in talking to a lot of people. This is an answer I've been given, not my own. But as the rents continue to go up in La Plata County, most landlords are passing those property tax increases on to their renters. And most of our folks in the lower income brackets are subject to that, where sales tax in general is a little bit discretionary. When their landlord's passing on that cost to them, it's not discretionary. And so that's an answer that's been given to me as I've been out talking to folks in the public.
Bonnie asked a question in the chat of me, and that is about segregating second home owners. Currently in the state of Colorado and state statutes, it doesn't allow for property taxes to be different for primary homeowners versus secondary homeowners. They've discussed that a little bit, and I think it'd be, maybe something to really look into. The issue is, how do we figure it out? So we have talked a little bit about, well, where do they vote? Where are they registered to vote? Where are their cars registered, et cetera? But that takes a lot of discovery that we don't have at our fingertips. So that's one of the reasons why we keep getting, I guess, waylaid on trying to figure out, can we tax second property owners differently with property tax than primary property owners? And then you get a little bit further into it with, well, what makes it a second home? If they live there 6 months, 4 months, 2 months, 2 weeks. So there's a lot of that going on too, as far as trying to figure out what does that mean. And so far the legislature has not jumped on that, even though they talked about it during all those special sessions.
Mm.
To add on to what Carrie said, it's a great question. So what people have said to me, just in all transparency, is yes, why a sales? Very astute, fair question. The second thing is, why don't you just tax second homeowners to deal with all this? We don't know if even if Carrie could have some magical program and not have to hire 10 people to go figure out and assess what is a second home and what isn't and all that, like she just said, we have to be enabled by the state legislature to do that taxation of second homes. I'm all for it. If we can figure out a way to do it, let's do it. But I also don't want to have it hurt this could be an unfunded mandate to our assessor, where it's like, yeah, you're going to go do second home taxes, but then we don't have the software of the people to do it, which seems to be a very common thing these days that is occurring. Not to be woe is me, but we just have a lot of things coming down from the state that we can't pay for. And then now with the big bill that has come down from Congress, that one example is we in 27 may have to hire 5 additional eligibility technicians for the Medicaid work requirement. So there's a lot there we're paying for. I think we've made that point. So the kind of taxes we could do a use tax. So if you go buy your car in Farmington, you have to get a tax on it. That would raise 1.5 million a year. Commissioner Salka led the way in the state to do an expansion of the lodger's tax to go from 2 to 6%. Representative Stewart worked hard on that. Senator Simpson did. That would raise about an additional 1.8 million a year. And you can see what our needs are much bigger than that. So these are all great ideas of like, why are you doing sales and why don't you do second homes? And we really do, we've thought through every angle. If there was an easy way to do like a low hanging tax, we would go like if we only needed 2 million a year, we could probably figure that out. But the sales and property are going to be what raise the money that is needed to keep the services up.
So do I get this right? So Sean's house is tax gives to the county 237 a year of all that. It was about 237 a year. So say that was his second home. What would he pay? 500 a year? How much more would the county get? You know?
Well, that's not part of the law right now, Karen, so we don't have a formula for that.
But it still wouldn't bring in the revenues that the county needs, is my point.
Probably not.
Yeah. It would help, but not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's a real thing of trying to figure out what is a second home. This is, I'm getting into Carrie's expertise, but it's, I've learned everything is about 10 times more complicated than it kind of seems. But like, how come we can't just go tax second homes? And then frankly, there's a constituency out there in the real estate community that would never want a second home tax. And they're powerful. They're very powerful. Um, I don't know, Monty or Treasurer Grushkin, if you have anything to add. One thing I will say for departments like our clerk and assessor and treasurer, this particular pinch we're in is hitting them very hard because they already have they don't have any extra staff. They never did, and they so we're wanting to make sure that we have this core government service, whether it's the coroner or what Monty does or what Carrie does, not to mention the sheriff and everybody else. But Monty, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Um, no, I don't have anything to add at this point. Thank you, Marsha.
Yeah.
Happy to answer any questions people have, but I don't have anything at this moment.
And Marsha, if I may jump in just real quick, and that is just to please, I have to jump off here soon. That's why I'm going to jump in here really quick. I sit on a closed landfill mitigation committee, and so I need to get on that and be ready for it. But the important item is if you hear people that are questioning it or wanting to know more, reach out to us. Ask those questions. We have our website. We can share that on here in the the chat room. But really is ask those questions. It is very confusing. It is one where we're more than happy to sit down with anyone to be able to discuss what those, what their concerns are, how much it's going to cost them, what does that impact. And so I just really think the electeds that are here on the call right now to help push this initiative. This is very important. I don't want to keep cutting into the muscle like I was quoted in the paper, which we already have definitely have done. We're trying to save jobs, but more importantly, providing services that are very important to our residents here in La Plata County. When I first became county commissioner, I lost a good friend of mine due to a fentanyl overdose. That would probably be one of the first programs that we need to cut because we have to bring things back in. And that's a service that we're not mandated to do. I want to continue doing that work and saving those, me not personally, not commissioners or the elected saving those lives, but those dollars help save those lives. And we want to continue doing that. So please ask more further questions. Please reach out to the electeds that are on this committee and this call, and more than happy to engage with anyone else that wants to learn more.
Hey, if I can say one other thing real quick. Oh, thank
you, Commissioner Salka.
If I can say one other thing real quick that came up at our community meeting in Vicedo the other night. Well, first of all, the question came up about what if I believe in this county service or that county service? They were using the sheriff's office and road and bridge as examples, but don't really want to fund anything else. I will say, without Monty and Carrie, none of us would have money to begin with. Those are statutorily required, right? But if we start to look at everything and how interconnected it is, so they were saying they would support the sheriff's office. Well, if you support the sheriff's office and not roads and bridges, my deputies all have defibrillators in their car. If you're calling with a heart attack, 9 times out of 10, we beat paramedics there because we're out patrolling in the county. What if Road and Bridge hasn't plowed the county for snow that night? We're going to very much struggle in trying to get there to save your life. Those services are interconnected. Most child abuse cases or child protective services or elder abuse cases that originate in human services begin with my staff. They're interconnected, right? We have to be able to understand that it's not simply a pick and choose. We have mandatory statutory things everybody has to do, and so many of them are tied together that we can't just pick our favorites and say that's what I want. County government has to function as a whole.
And apologies, I've been talking about this lately, so I already can't remember exactly what I said at noon. But Commissioner Philbrick, being new, said this great thing, and again, forgive me if I'm repeating it, that what the county does is so in people's lives, sometimes you don't know it's there. So if you have a deceased loved one, who shows up? The county coroner, oftentimes supported by the sheriff's office. There's all the government functions like valuation that Carrie does, keeping track of money. But it's sometimes I'm blown away by the little things that the county does. When people call in and I hear our staff spending like a half hour on the phone with somebody trying to figure something out, like how do I get my trash, dropped off? It's that kind of service to the public that's around health, safety, and welfare, not to mention public health. I really look at it like we're protecting the environment. We protect air and water quality. We are responsible for septic systems under a certain type, amount, and people who are on them. The gas spill out on the Mesa is the worst gas spill since ever recorded in the state of Colorado. It just went up from 23,000 gallons to 97,000 gallons. We have to track on that. We are home to the Southern Ute Indian tribe, which is a sovereign nation. That is something we really care about, but it takes a lot of staff time and energy, and frankly, attorney time, to understand and develop a relationship with them, which I credit our attorney's office for doing over decades. So I can get kind of preachy about this. Please forgive me. What all these 486 people do is it's really, really inspiring. And it's not a shiny penny for a rec center kind of thing. You're not going to see a big library coming out of the prairie because this 1 cent went through. It's this stuff that is in everybody's lives. Again, when you go downtown to a restaurant. And so forgive my preaching. I think any of us that are elected care so much about this. And yeah, going for taxes is never awesome. Nobody likes taxes, but we also want to create a shared future here. We want these services to be able to serve people that are, we're going to be at 70,000 people in a couple of years from now. And so that's bigger. I moved here when there were like 27,000 people. And so what's going to happen when they get in a crisis? What's going to happen when they're having a mental health crisis and we need one of our sheriff's deputies there to be there with a co-responder? That program's been amazing. What does it cost, Sean? 500,000 a year? 800,000. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was trying to follow the rules. Yeah, we get an $800,000 grant to get off that program off the ground, and then it got a second round of 500,000. We canceled all the county side expenses and have just been sending that money to Access. But to continue that program, we're looking at somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 a year, and we just don't have it.
Yep. So it's the child in Vicedo or that's having a mental health crisis and does something that involves law enforcement, and then we are responding appropriately. And when I say we, sheriff and his team, of course, are that. But I don't know. I feel like we might be done with questions here, Karen, but really appreciate everybody's good analysis of this. As Matt said, we welcome hard questions. But we know what the need is, and we're going to work our tails off to get this thing passed.
Well, I really appreciate all Marsha, you're a treasure for this county, and I'm sorry there are term limits. I mean, there's good and bad about term limits for everything, but Monty and Carrie and Dick White was elected, and Sheriff Smith. You guys are just treasures for this community, and I appreciate the depth of the PowerPoint. It really, I took notes, so you know. So my last thing is I want to tell everybody who hears this video, because it's going to be shared on YouTube, please share it. Please share it with everybody you know that lives in this county that can vote for this. I'm going to come out and say that I see the need. We have core parts of the county that really need to keep going. And it isn't all our burden. We have a lot of tourists. So just think of it that way, that the tourists are paying the extra 1 cent. And and I think it's fantastic that there is this opportunity to get the 1 cent. I'm from Los Angeles, and I know that sometimes you live in places that require a lot more of you to provide services and willing to do so. So, Monty, you had a question?
I just want to make a really quick statement. Groceries are not taxed. So when we think about, and to Dick's question, and I also am concerned, and just keep in mind, I am a registered independent. I have been an independent unaffiliated for many years, and I think of myself as fiscally conservative with a social conscience. And I had already raised some concerns about a sales tax being regressive and hitting lower income. And, but I think being able to state to folks, your groceries aren't taxed. So folks who are living paycheck to paycheck and a big portion of their paycheck is food, that's not going to get impacted. So I think it's going to be important as we talk about this in the community that we reiterate that what goods and services, would be subject to this additional sales tax increase and how that would affect folks who are living paycheck to paycheck.
That's an important distinction.
We have a handout. I'm happy to provide it. I'm not good at being on the screen and sharing in the chat. If you Google state of Colorado sales taxes, and I can provide it to you, Karen, it is, yes, essential food is not taxed. Some food is taxed. Like if you go get a deli tray or a soda, that's taxed. And so some people said, how come you didn't go further? And it's the administration of it would have been highly complicated. But I think Monty raises a really fair point. But essential food, as defined by the state of Colorado, is not taxed.
Excellent.
Marsha, I got a question. This is Peter Tregillis.
Hi, Peter.
Hey there. As you know, I do work out in based in Ignacio, and we have had conversations about county funding and the county situation of the county budget. Excuse me. And what I am told was their questioning about you had all this money out of COVID before, and you didn't manage to prepare for this rainy day. Is the reason for all of that the Gallagher change? That's the big one you heard, because they're questioning all of that, and that's what they don't necessarily see or recognize. But would that be how you would respond to them if they asked you, how come you didn't prepare for all of this?
First of all, I'm going to push back hard on that, as you would expect. We did prepare, and previous commissioners did prepare by pocketing oil and gas money for years. So we were sitting on very, very big fund balances, and that was from oil and gas. All right. You can't sit on big fund balances and ask for a tax increase when our buildings needed fixing up. The county manager came to us during the pandemic and said we need to do a compression raise, which we did for people to pay living wages. So the county has been preparing for this for a long time. And I have another slide on the depletion of our fund balance that has been planned. So we did get over 11 million of ARPA. Bear in mind that was given to us in 20 and 21. We had no idea the legislature was going to hack our residential assessment rate. So let me tell you where the ARPA went. We first of all said that youth and families were, and by the way, that money, what we couldn't just go put that in the bank. It was for pandemic response, specifically as per Congress. We spent 40% on broadband because what did the pandemic teach us? So many people can't get broadband. So their kids couldn't learn. Why do we have a learning gap? It's because kids literally were going to McDonald's to get on the Wi-Fi. So Matt has led the way on that. You can't get Wi-Fi for his, internet to everybody who needs it in La Plata County, especially with our geography. But we made some really big investments, including a really exciting project with the tribe that brought internet to parts of the Southeast County and Ignacio that weren't there before. So then we said housing, such a crisis during the pandemic. So we leveraged over 10 million in 2 years, including to the Rock Creek project in Ignacio and other places, Westside Mobile Home Park. I think all you know the story. We have a revolving loan fund set up. So we said, what's another pandemic problem? Rents, housing, getting housing going. We deployed a lot of that money to housing. Then we said, youth and families are very harmed by the pandemic, especially mental health. We deployed 3.5 million to organizations specifically to help youth, and that list went on and on and on. Many people who have English as a second language needed help with translation. It launched a translator co-op done by Companeros. Food. What did we learn in the pandemic? Access to food. Rachel Landis, a most amazing person, probably one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She and her group have done this whole food security systems work in La Plata County. So I think that's a totally fair question Peter's asking, but we didn't know in 2022 that that we were going to have what is now called the property tax wars in Colorado. We didn't really see the impact of the residential assessment rates until the 23 and 24 budgets. Looking back, Peter, do I wish that we would have deployed about half that ARPA money and been able to fill some gaps? Absolutely. Fair question. But that would have only been for 1 year anyway. Even if we took half that ARPA money and put it till 26, we're still going to have this problem. In fact, the residential assessment rates are going to go down even more. And so, Ignacio, I think, was specifically helped by the ARPA money, but we really had a vision that this is for the pandemic and people are hurting during this pandemic. Then we funded like an HVAC system on our 911 call center. Durango Fire needed an ambulance because of the unbelievable mental health transports they were doing to Denver. So we funded a specialized mental health ambulance. We gave a water dock to the west side of the county. And it wasn't like sprinkle fairy dust all over the county. We're really trying to do not for our legacy, but like legacy investments to help our community. So, hindsight's 2020. But again, if we had even kept half that money, it would only get us through 26. We would still have this long-term finance committee of ours, very high-level people. CPA, Sid Zink, Tim Miller, that used to be an oil and gas finance guy, Tom Breed. All these people told us last year, we have it online if anybody wants it, like you guys have a structural problem. So does that answer your question, Peter? I mean, I'm glad you raised, I don't know if it answers it.
Well, in some ways, it's not my question. It's what I hear down there, because it's the pushback that I get when I'm talking to them about the county budget. And I'm grateful for the information. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Tough questions are always welcomed because we're talking about your money.
Marsha, I want to add in there that those changed the assessment rates. They changed the commercial assessment rate, which hasn't been changed in all the 29 years I've been here. It went from 29% to 27%. Well, as we all know, a huge portion of our revenue is coming from oil and gas, which is commercially assessed. When they lowered that by 2% with an already declining revenue stream coming in from oil and gas, it hurt. It hurt in Plata County. It hurt Ignacio especially.
Yep. And then I could go on and on. All these I could go on and on. But we also were in a tectonic shift in the oil and gas industry in general. A lot of the companies are going to renewables. Colorado has very strong regulations, which I support. And that actually hasn't stopped drilling or permitting in Colorado that much, but for the companies that are like kind of marginal or on the edge, those regulations are definitely impacting. And then the tribe is going into the oil and gas space in new ways, and they do not pay property taxes. And so, you know, the oil and gas industry, and then you have this play in the Mancos Shale. And I'm not going to be an expert here. I'm osmosising what I've heard and learned, but Carrie's right. We have, and then you have a company that has gone, is in foreclosure, and a company last year that couldn't pay their taxes. And Monty knows all about that. Carrie knows all about that. So we're in this shifting sands around oil and gas in general, and that
Yeah,
does, Peter, that really impacts your part of the world that you spend a lot of time in down there in Ignacio.
yeah, and just to build off of what Marsha said, the oil and gas company that was delinquent or did not pay their taxes on time was Simcoe, but they did pay the full amount of their tax bill plus interest, which was a sizable amount. And a lot of the oil and gas, and I did a big analysis on the impact of Simcoe on all the various taxing authorities, really does hit Bayfield, Ignacio, where these wells are located. Those taxing authorities got hit, you know, and the other gas and oil company she's referring to, again, the bulk of them not paying their taxes impacts Ignacio, Bayfield, doesn't necessarily impact La Plata County general to the same degree. So I think it's, you know, taxes can be very complicated, but I think what's very important, and in one of the slides, you as an individual can go online to the La Plata County website, put in your account number, and get a visual of where your tax dollars are going. And I think most people assume that since it's La Plata County taxes, that it's La Plata County government. And that's just not the case. And we saw that with Sean's tax bill. I think it's very important for people to understand, and we bring it down to that level, that we're talking about funding La Plata County general, road and bridge, you know, the things that are not funded to the same degree as all the taxing authorities through property taxes.
Thank you.
That's, you guys, Marsha, when you say you could go on and on, I'm ready, but I think we will wrap it up.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. I bet not everybody is, but anyway, thank you for that compliment.